Welcome, everyone. It looks like we have most everyone. I'm expecting to see kind of the same participant number as last week. A couple people still be trickling in, but we'll go ahead and get started. I hope you enjoyed a little REM this morning. I went to school in Athens, Georgia, so I love the B-52s, REM. We have a great music culture and history in that town. So as a reminder, and once again, Leah's Pantry just wants to thank California's CalFresh Healthy Living program for their sponsorship in the development of this training today. So this is some housekeeping. It was the same last week, but there's always a couple new faces because, as busy people, some people can't join day one and they join day two. So I'll quickly go through these again. So first off, feel free to take a break if you need to, stand, stretch. We have another 5-minute break built into the middle of this training today, but if you need a break at a different time, feel free to take that. Again, slides are going to be shared after the training. Slides, resources, more information, more links, all that is going to come to you after the training, and it'll also be in the online course. We will once again be doing some group work today. Today, the group work is going to look a little bit different. We're going to be doing a lot of sharing and learning from each other. So I'll go through that when we get a little bit closer to the first breakout. But just know we are going to be working in breakouts today, doing some group work. And then once again, we will be asking you to share back. So just know that going into that group work, we're probably going to say, hey, make sure you designate someone from your group who wants to share a little bit about what you discussed in your small groups or your breakouts. Okay, so with that, you still have me as a facilitator today. So for anyone new, hi, my name is Leah Quinn. I'm a program manager here at Leah's Pantry. I did my big intro in day one, so if you want to see that, you can look back at the recording. And we still have Kaylee doing our tech support, but I do want to share that we have a new facilitator today, Carrie Richardson, so I'll pass it over to her for a quick hello and about me.
Good morning. My name is Carrie Richardson. I'm Director of Training with Leah's Pantry. Here are some photos of my life in San Diego. Photos are a little outdated. It's hard keeping them updated with little ones because they grow so fast. But my daughter Chloe is about 2 years older than these photos now, so I guess I should just do a better job keeping them updated. But very excited to get to spend the next 2 hours with you all. When I started my work with Leah's Pantry, I was working a lot with pantries. And in fact, a lot of the photos in this training are photos that I actually took. So it's always a trip down memory lane to get to share those stories with you. So with that, back to you, Leah.
Thanks, Carrie. So excited to have you with us today. Okay, so a quick review for those who just need the refresher or again who missed day one. Day one and day two of BNP are so different. It's part of what makes the training really fun, but just know that we're going to be talking about very different things today. The flow and the goals of the training today are so different than they were in day one. So in day one, we talked a lot about the science of trauma and resilience. We reflected on the personal and professional implications we have um, based on that science and with our relationship with food. We learned some great new tools for responding to trauma. So we went through those 5 R's of a trauma-informed approach. And we ended with some small group sharing and feedback. We did a little bit of customer service as well. Now, day two, we shared that's going to be all about tangible resources and very example heavy. So just know that. So today, the goal here is really for you to come away with a bunch of tangible resources and ideas to use this as a great session to dream about what your site could look like, or if you're working with a partner, what their site could look like. And we're specifically going to be talking about some focus areas. So we'll specifically be talking about changes and alterations and things that you can do in the physical environment, within dietary and cultural accommodations, within nutrition education, and community connections. So we're going to cover modifications, best practices, and great things that you can utilize within your distributions. And again, the goal is just to get your wheels turning, to really be brainstorming, to share what you're already doing, to celebrate what you're already doing, and to hopefully leave here with an idea of some great, easy ways to implement some changes into your site. So with that, we do have a custom resource list that we will be sharing. It's going to go into your Talent LMS course. It's going to go into the follow-up email as well. But I just want to show so that you all know that this is what you're going to be leaving with. So today, Carrie and I are going to reference a bunch of these resources. So if we say, hey, this is going to be in your resource library, or this is available in the library with a bunch of translations, know that this is what we're talking about. I'm not going to give it to you right now because I think that would probably be distracting and you'd be tempted to just spend the training looking through it. But it has a lot of resources under all the areas we're going to talk about and some other areas as well. And all of these are, for the most part, editable and can be modified to use within your own community. So that is what we're talking about when we reference all the resources that you'll be leaving with and the resource library. Okay, so let's start with a little bit of movement before getting into the content section. So I love the coconut stretch. I love it, especially in a training where I'm working with staff or volunteers or food bank workers, because we're often lifting crates and boxes and moving and twisting and turning, and just starting your shift sometimes, or starting, your volunteer group's shift with this type of stretch can be really nice. And it's just fun too. So please humor me if you'd like. You can stand or you can sit. I think I'll remain sitting just because I have this sort of like frame behind me today and I don't want to knock it over. So this is called the coconut stretch. It's just spelling out coconut with your body. So if you're sitting or standing, go ahead and lean over to one side, do that stretch to one side, big C, and then you make an O by just putting the arms overhead. Looking up feels really nice too. C, go in the other direction. Get that side stretch. O, up above once again. Now in, if you're standing, touch your toes. If you're sitting, just lean over. Let your upper body fall down. Kind of makes an in shape. And then U, arms out wide, up again. And then T, just what you would think, reaching to walls on either side of you. All right, so one more time, a little bit faster. We'll connect it all together. So C, and then O, other side, C, O, above, in, nice stretch to your toes. U, arms up, and T, out to the side. Perfect. All righty. So with that, I'll pass it over to Carrie.
Okay, thank you. I needed that stretch more than I realized. Okay, so as Leah mentioned, you guys will be going into breakout rooms and we're going to be presenting a lot of examples. So I encourage you to grab a piece of paper. If you can open a notes file on your computer without getting distracted and doing work, do that. But as I go through the next 30 minutes of content, go ahead and jot down some notes, okay? Because after I go through it, we're going to put you into breakout rooms and we're going to ask you more or less, what did you hear that you already do, or you do something really well in that area related to it? And what did you hear that you want to do more of, or what sparked some ideas? So go ahead, take a moment, grab something that you can actually write these ideas down so that when you go into a breakout room, you remember what you thought about. Okay. So promising practices in the pantry. The first area of promising practices that we're going to go through is what we call the environment. And when we say environment, we mean the space. We don't mean like Mother Earth, the environment. Okay. So the sales tagline for this one is that neighbors, or the objective is that neighbors are warmly welcomed and healthy options are easy to access. So we're going to go through, this one's a beefier one. So we're going to go through a couple different best practices in this area. So what we can think about when we think about the pantry environment, things we may consider are the check-in process, the overall just space. What does it look like? What does it feel like when you step foot into it? And how do we make the healthy choice the easy choice? Okay, so these are the three things that we're going to talk about within environment. So we can first start by considering what is the first impression during that check-in process, right? That's usually the first thing that somebody does. And to do this, it can be helpful to put yourself in the shoes of a first-time patron. Is it clear where to go? What documents are needed? How long is it going to take? Are there signs or images before they get to the intake process that can help explain this to them? We really want to front load the information for neighbors so that they know what to expect and what is expected of them. Just like we front load for you, right? We've told you how many times you're going to go into breakout rooms. This is what we're going to expect of you when you're in the breakout room, right? People don't like surprises unless it's a really fun birthday surprise. But generally speaking, we don't want surprises. We want it to be very clear early and often, because that check-in process can be a real stress, right? So we want to take away that stress. We also want to consider ways that we can communicate that there's enough food to go around, right? That is another stress, common stress about food distributions. Is there going to be food? Is it going to be food that I want? Is all of the food going to be gone, right? This is why we see neighbors lining up hours and hours in advance of a distribution. So how can we communicate that there is going to be enough food, or how can we make tweaks to our model to help overcome some of those challenges? So some pantries may do appointment times. Some pantries may change the hours of their operation based on client feedback to make it at a more desirable time. Some pantries may reserve certain items for the second half of the distribution. So they may know, you know what, we do run out of things, but we're going to reserve some things for that second half so that it's not the person who's coming towards the end of the distribution that's always getting the short stick. We also want to think about the waiting area. So is there somewhere to sit? Is there shade? Is there water? Perhaps tea, right? It's not always cold. It's not always just warm in the summer, but also is it too cold during the winter? And not just the waiting area for, we always want to think about our neighbors, but we also want to think about our volunteers as well. Where do the volunteers work? What does that space work? Do they have a place to take a break? Do they have a place to set their bags down? So you want to think about this overall environment for the check-in process and for when neighbors are first entering the pantry. Then we can think about the pantry space as a whole. So what does it look like? How does somebody feel when they step into it? Is it really crowded and dark and it kind of smells weird and you just immediately have a visceral reaction to it, right? Or do you walk in and immediately feel at home? It's nice to look at. You feel relaxed. You feel welcomed. You feel dignified, right? Is this a dignified experience? So is there opportunity to paint or add some colorful art or posters? Perhaps identifying your most organized, artistic, creative volunteers to see if they have some ideas of how to spruce things up, right? Know what your strengths are. And if that's not your strength, it's not mine, I would be finding somebody else to help me make that space beautiful. What about the signage from the street? Can we find the distribution easily? Again, thinking about that first time patron, and thinking about things from your volunteers' perspective. Do they have a dedicated space for them to sit, for them to set their bags? Some pantries may play music and try to kind of mimic a farmer's market atmosphere. We had one pantry who we worked with that found a local band and they had them playing outside as clients were, this was a drive-through, so as they were driving through, but it could also work for, a client choice, like an in-person environment as well. So on the next several slides, we're going to go through some specific examples and pictures of what these suggestions may look like. So here are two examples of ways to spruce up the pantry area. So this positivity board This was actually the very first pantry that I ever visited in Fallbrook, right outside of San Diego. And it's just a cool, different neighbors will write notes and write statements and pin them to the board. So it's just if you sit there and read it, and I know you can't read the statements from here, but it's an incredibly uplifting experience to just stand there and read it for 5 minutes, right? Especially if it's in an area where you're standing and waiting anyway. The picture to the left, the snack area, this is at a college pantry area. And these are grab and go snacks that are just available for all students, right? There's no stigma attached here to this being a distribution or having to sign up for things. These are just snacks for students. And who doesn't love a free snack, right? Here's a pretty cool before and after photo, right? So the before is actually pretty nice. Like it's green, it's bright, it's clean, it's well lit. But then the after really takes it up a level. So it gives a nice design. We have shelves in place that really enable you to put the food in an organized way. You can even see what it looks like when the shelves have food on them. They even added a little picture with fruits and vegetables and welcome. So again, this isn't such an expensive thing to do, but you do need to find somebody who's able to do it, who has that creative bone in their body. So looking for community groups and other volunteers to create this space. If there's a local school, even having, tapping into that resource. This is where we're tapping into the community can really have some cool results. All right, so here are some pictures for in-person environments where you would come and shop. These are both client choice environments. And I mean, when you look at these, I don't know if this is a pantry or a store, right? Or a farmer's market. Like you really can't tell the difference here. The picture to the left, this is a campus, this is a college, and I've seen for other pantries as well, using the TV as a way to display information, recipes. They may do recipe cards. They may even do short videos. And we have videos on eatfresh.org or on our eatfresh.org YouTube channel where it's just like 2 minutes for a recipe demo, right? Maybe the pantry, maybe you can't do a recipe demo yourself, but if you've got a recorded video that's 2 minutes just playing on loop, you can do it with sound or without because they're really easy to follow. You could play those on loop there. You could also give information and easily give information in multiple languages without having to worry about printing. It's easy to update, again, because you're not having to reprint. So that can be great if you can find a TV or a display. In general, both pictures, clean layout, organized shelves, wide aisles. You do want to think about accessibility, right? If your aisles are too narrow, is that something that somebody in a wheelchair can get through, somebody who's in a larger body, or with a walker? So you do want to think about accessibility. And both pictures have a feeling of abundance, right? And we're going to show you some tricks of how you can do that, perhaps when you are running low on cucumbers. How can you still make that look like it is abundance and that you're not the person who's picking the last two rejected cucumbers that no one else picked, right? And also in the right, notice these signs. These are nutrition ed signs. So we'll talk about how these are providing little nudges of what am I looking at? How can I use it? What are the health benefits? So lots of different ways that you can use the display to establish a positive environment. Anna, did you have a comment? Or maybe a mistake within
No,
the
I'm so
button?
sorry. I'm trying to figure out why the heck my sound isn't coming through, and I didn't realize I wasn't
Oh,
on mute.
okay, no problem. Oh, you can DM Kaylee Wright, and she's our tech support, so she might be able to try to help you. I hope, but it is being recorded. Okay, so looking at some other examples, and these are for more of a pop-up or a curbside environment. So the These two examples, very clear client choice, right? So what if we have a drive-through? What if it's a pop-up? How can we incorporate some client choice? Well, the good news is that there's lots of different ways that you can. So first off, alerting people to what they may be receiving and giving them, the option, the one to the right, there's a cook bag, there's a no cook bag. This is back during COVID time. So there was also PPE being handed out. There's also the option of a hygiene bag or pet food, which are two things that we see in high demand for most distributions. The picture on the left is one of our implementer sites in LA, a pantry where we work in LA, showing examples of bundling. So showing what things go together. And if you have the capacity for it, you could even print out kind of a menu that lets people mark which items they want in their car and then pack bags on site for them while they wait in line. So if they're seeing, okay, these are the options, now you kind of denote which ones you want, then you go back and pack the bag. So some more modified choice in the picture to the left, the neighbors are walking through the line, it's being packed for them, but they're pointing to what they want. So they have the option of, A or B, or maybe they, just the option of, do you want this, yes or no? And they pick which ones they want. Swap tables can be great as well. So if you do have a bagged distribution, then having just a swap table at the end where someone can say, you know what, I really am not going to use this. So let me put it here so somebody else can take it. And oh, look, somebody else put the rice. I really would like rice. So I'm going to take that instead. This does help to reduce waste as well. I've been to distributions where they are doing a bag distribution and it is so sad to see you walk, you feel great. Everyone's walking away with these great bags of food and they were giving out meat and milk and they had refrigeration, right? But it was pre-selected and you go into the parking lot and literally gallons of milk there. Somebody, maybe they're lactose intolerant or maybe they just don't like it and it's just sitting in the parking lot. So you want to reduce that as much as possible. The picture to the right is a menu. So I've been at pantries where the space did not allow it to be, client choice. They didn't have a shop model, but they were able to sit down and say, okay, here's your order form. And would, part of that intake process would be somebody sitting with them and taking the order form with them. Now we will talk about how you can do this for someone, whose maybe literacy is low or different language as well, right? And maybe the person working with them doesn't speak the same language. So there's some techniques here that I'll show you in a moment for that. But this again is giving an amount of choice, even though they're going to go back and bag it for them. So let's talk about nudges. So have you ever heard of behavioral economics? Or the Smarter Lunchroom program, right? That's what this is built on. So we're thinking, how can we use the environment around you to influence your choice? And as a consumer person out in the world, this is being done to you all of the time, right? You go into the grocery store, the placement of the bakeries, the first thing you walk in, and it's got that smell and it looks so great. The products that are at eye level versus the ones lower down, these are the ones they're wanting you to pick. It's easier to see, it's easier to grab. The candy bars at the checkout line, right? Not just for yourself, but if you've ever been to a grocery store with a kid, right? They're like, oh, want to grab that, want to grab that. So these are all nudges to put them strategically, certain things in front of you to try to influence your choice. And so we can use this science in our pantries as well. We want to promote and make the healthy choice the easier choice. So the way that we can do nudges, so nudging is creating small changes to the environment that influence behaviors without eliminating choice. And in a distribution setting, nudges can be used to help neighbors identify, select, and utilize healthy or unfamiliar foods, right? How many of you have had pallets of carrots and you're like, we got to get rid of these carrots, or some other food, and you're like, how am I gonna convince people that they want these carrots, and make sure that they really are being used and enjoyed, right? Okay, so we've got a great acronym for you. Yes, you can. And this stands for convenient, attractive, and normal. So I'm going to go through each of these, and this is your acronym to remember to incorporate nudges into your pantry space. So the C, convenient. How can we make the fruits, vegetables, or other products that we want the convenient choice, right? This is where at the supermarket, it's the eye-level choice. That's what they're pushing. They're not pushing whatever is on that very bottom shelf that you have to like really work your way down to see what it is. So placing fruits and vegetables before other foods in line. This has been shown to increase selection of those items. Now, I will say that I have had some pantries struggle with, because they want to put the heavy items first. Because if somebody's going through with a bag, they're wanting to put the cans at the bottom and then the leafy greens at the top, right? So you do want to be able to support folks if they are packing their bag as they're going, so that they're not crushing their soft things, but this can still be done, especially if more than one bag is made available. And maybe you're coaching them along the way of keep a bag empty. We're going to have some cans at the end, or maybe there's a repack area later on. Placing healthy food at eye level and easy to reach location. And again, considering accessibility here, right? Easy to reach for somebody who is standing and walking through the pantry is different than easy to reach for somebody who's in a wheelchair or somebody who's using a walker and maybe needs some assistance. The abundance, right? So giving the impression of abundance through fronting and consolidation. These are official grocery terms. And I love the before and after here, right? Because it is the one on the right. It's a more appealing picture. And so you don't want to feel like you're taking the like last rejected orange in the pack. So something even as simple as this can have an impact. Okay, on to the A, attractive. So for attractive, we want the space as a whole. We already talked about that, right? So if the space as a whole, if you walk in and it's kind of dark and dingy, kind of smells a little, that's not making you say, I want to eat food from here, right? So the space as a whole is important, but it's also important to look at the food displays themselves. So in a Feeding America study, they found that changing a cabbage display from a cardboard tote to a heavy duty plastic increased the likelihood that clients took that item by up to 42%. So it's a really simple change. And like cabbage is not like the sexiest of vegetables, right? So like that can be a little hard to push sometimes. But that's a really easy change. Now, when you consider these things, you may be thinking, where do I get this? I don't have money. I don't have budget for this. And certainly that can be a challenge. Some tips that I would say is reaching out to the community. If you are doing any sort of food contribution drives, consider adding these items to the contribution drive, not just asking for cans, but maybe you are asking for a couple of these milk crates, or you're asking for leftover for fabric. And you can see how the picture to the right, it has the milk crate, but it also has like a nice fabric in there. Your volunteers, what sorts of skill sets do they have? Do you have someone who was, the person who was sewing masks during early pandemic days and they want to whip out that sewing machine again? And this would be a really easy project for them. And we can get leftover, you can get, material, fabric, that's the word, donated or for cheap from like a Goodwill or something. If any of you are part of a Buy Nothing group, I always advertise and push this. So Buy Nothing, it's on, you do have to be a member of Facebook, but I believe there are some other groups that have, popped up other places. But look for Buy Nothing and then type in your geographic region. This is a group that is just, you give stuff away. So whatever's from your house that you don't have a use for anyway, you post it. And then somebody would comment on it and say, oh, please consider me. So you may say, hey, I'm collecting baskets or milk cartons or any type of display for fruits and vegetables for my pantry. And because you can post asks as well and see if anybody has that. So there are ways to get a little creative about this. And then certainly these items could be found for a a better price at a Goodwill or something like that. So simple changes with somebody who has, the tablecloths even, who knows what those tables look like underneath, right? They're probably not they've been used over time. They're scratched up, they're dinged up, right? But that tablecloth, it covers it all right away. So some simple changes can make a big difference in the appearance of the food, making it more attractive to select, making people more likely to select it, and also increasing the dignity of the experience as a whole. Some other ways to increase the attractiveness, to use this as a nudge, right? Signage. So the one on the left is a repurposed palette. Then we've got some sandwich boards. Again, you're looking for those really creative volunteers, and maybe you're putting some specific asks out to community groups who possess the skill set. This is not me, right? So if it's not you, then you just got to find somebody who has the skill set, but plenty of people do. Now, normalize. Normalize means that we are making ingredients more familiar and normalizing that this is a food to eat, right? So you may be doing this by highlighting preparation tips or recipes. I'm going to talk to you about bundling, which is another strategy. So the tomato picture, top left, has a sign that's telling them helpful information about the health benefits of tomatoes. The tasty tip in the middle that says great meat into mashed potatoes. You're going to get these if you want to print them out. You print them out and then you laminate them. Laminate them and then use a dry erase marker, write the tip on, erase it, next day, write a new tip. So this is a great way, really cheap way to make these little tips that you can give recommendations on how to use them and how to move some of that inventory that you're kind of stuck with, right? And then some recipes on the bottom left. Any type of recipe is always good. You can encourage folks to take a picture of it if you're not able to include a recipe in each bag. If you're able to do some sort of food demo or even play a video of that demo or provide a QR code. Maybe you don't have a TV, but maybe there's a QR code that takes you to the YouTube video, right? Anything that's quick and easy to show them this is how you can use this food. And then to the right is just another information about the health benefits and how to use and how to store food. That's also really important, knowing how to store it so that it lasts for a long time. Okay, so bundling. You will get access to these little tips as well, these little bundling cards. Again, this is something you want to print out and laminate. By the $25 laminator, it will go a long ways. And so here you can see just the We Go Together. You may show this kind of when they're going through the line or at the beginning to show a really easy way to make a meal out of what you're giving out that day. Or to the one to the right, maybe you don't have eggs, so then you're saying just add eggs, and again that's laminated with a white a dry erase marker, so you can reuse that. And you can get really creative with this. This is fun if you do ever have a volunteer event or volunteer training, something we've done before. It's kind of like a Top Chef type challenge where you say, okay, here's a table of things, or go into the pantry. How many different combinations, how many different bundles can you make? We do have bundling posters that you can print out that will be shared in the resources that Leah showed you earlier. And you can print those the posters out as well and hang those up, or even just use those as inspiration for you to bundle these common items together. Ants on a log, anyone? That was my favorite treat growing up. So I love this, just add celery with the peanut butter and raisins. And some other bundle examples that you can see. The one in the top that has there's some recipe cards going with that as well. Same thing with the bottom. This one, they're kind of pairing with a food demo where they're demoing this food. And this one is a little bit more than just okay, just put these two things together. There's an actual recipe that goes with it. So you can kind of have it be a really easy bundle or something that is a little bit harder. Okay, So we are going to talk about cultural and dietary accommodations. This is a shorter section, and after this section, you will be going into your breakout room. Remember, take some notes as we're going through this, but before we switch into this section, just take this moment to do a quick stretch. Let's all look away from our screens, focus. For eye strain, I'm told you're supposed to look far away, 20 feet away for 20 seconds. It's kind of a long time to wait for you all to do that. And then you would refocus back, do whatever you need in this moment. Arms, head. Okay. All right, this is a shorter section, and then you all get to share your tips with each other, which will be very beneficial. So, cultural and dietary accommodations. The objective here is that people of different backgrounds have access to food and information that fits their preferences and health needs. So the pictures to the right, I'm gonna talk about these a little bit more, but you're gonna have access to these that we call them cultural tip sheets. And these are gonna be linked in the resources that we send you all. Some of these you can see like Vietnamese food preferences, is for different cultural groups, where it's going to tell you a little bit about the group, and it's going to tell you foods that this group may be more likely to want and foods that the group may pass up. Whereas we have some that are going through different dietary patterns, like the diabetic diet, and it's telling you a little bit about what somebody who's on a diabetic diet may be more in need of, or foods that they have been probably told to avoid. So we really want neighbors to feel welcomed and valued in the pantry. And so having food that meets everyone's needs is a really important aspect of that. So if you aren't sure what kinds of food people want or need, you got to ask. So you may survey your neighbors to better understand what types of dietary accommodations you might be able to make in your space. Maybe it's gluten-free or vegan or halal, kosher, low sodium, etc. Lots of options. And I'll share some examples of how you may do this like in mass on the next slide. But the one that we're showing right here, this is, another example of like an order form. So maybe you're doing this one by one. If you do have a system that's like this, where it's not client choice, then you do want to have them denote if they do have any preferences when they are doing an order. So defining a process for easily assisting neighbors. So again, whether it's through something like this, or if you're going to use little signs throughout your client choice that are showing them, okay, this is low sodium, or this is where the gluten-free foods are, right? Making it clear with signage and just really easy to find what it is that they need. Okay. So I think, the goal is that we are creating a system where neighbors don't feel like they are a burden for having a specific dietary need. And so you want that to be a very easy ask for them, or thing for them to raise their hand, or they don't even have to raise their hand because it's out in front of them and they can see. So by offering these items, you're showing neighbors that their needs and desires are important to your pantry and that they're valued. They're not being a burden by saying that they have something that they can't eat or some specific request. So surveys can be a challenge, right? If we can do in the top right-hand corner, and you will get a sample survey in those resources as well. And that sample survey is pre-translated to a handful of languages. So if you can do a full survey, that can be great for you. However, this is a population that is generally over-surveyed. So that is something to keep in mind. Some neighbors may be hesitant to fill out a survey. They may just not want to, right? If you're constantly asked to fill out forms and surveys and you're really wanting to get your food and get out, this may not seem like the most dignified thing. If you are doing a survey and you know that you have clients who speak several different languages, you really do want to be able to have that survey translated and have people who can assist, because you have to consider literacy in whatever language that person has. So If you say, okay, we have the client survey available in Spanish, but you don't have somebody who speaks Spanish to help them because maybe they can't read Spanish, but they speak it. So these are all considerations. It doesn't mean to not do a survey, but it does mean that you want to consider what are the languages, because if you are not providing that survey in Spanish, then you are not collecting information from that entire group of clients, right? You're not truly surveying your clients about their needs because you're cutting out that whole group. Now, there are other ways, though, that are a little bit quick, a little bit easy, that may be easier for you and easier for the neighbors. So the picture with all the colorful dots, that is dot voting. And this is saying, what products did you purchase at market today? But maybe you would say, like, what would you like to see in your next at the next distribution? And then people vote by dots of what they want. Similar to that is the bottom right-hand corner, which is a marble jar survey. You could do this with like pom-poms or, you know, anything that's little, and you have a question, and then it could be just 2 like you see here, or it could be maybe like 4. It's like, what's your favorite fruit? Apples, banana, kiwi, pears. And then you can put a marble or a pom-pom in whichever ones you're voting for. Some sort of an incentive for completing the survey is always welcomed, and a good old, you know, suggestion box as well. So there are creative ways to get some feedback. You also do want to think about having a process for your volunteers to kind of collect what they're hearing, because you're hearing a lot when you're working with folks, and that's feedback as well. So you want some sort of process to distill that information and gather that from whoever is kind of boots on the ground. So some examples of dietary accommodation. So again, you know, this is a lot of signage, right? We talked about like, what is the system that makes the neighbor feel that they are not a burden, makes it easy for them. We want that transparency. We want it to be very clear and easy to use. So there may be areas of the pantry. To the right, you can see where it's labeled. To the left, there's just a sign saying, please ask our staff. It's not, they don't want to, in that situation, they don't want to put it out because they don't want anyone to take it who maybe doesn't need it. And so that's why they're doing it that way. We have these low sugar signs as well as low sodium, and the picture to the right of that is it on display, right? So you can use this if you've got like a client choice, like a shop style, you could use this to show items that meet certain common dietary accommodations. In our current needs, you know, this is an example in the middle where they're asking for specific things. They want the gluten-free items, or they're asking, you know, highlighting the needs that you have that hopefully you've been able to find out from your whatever survey you've been able to do. You can also add special items to like an Amazon list that donors can purchase from. That makes it really easy instead of, you know, so you've already pre-picked it out. Okay, so some more cultural accommodations. Again, you may think about how you can collect feedback from this group, and we already talked about that a bit. Translation and images, right? So this is a really, I like this example, the picture that you see on screen. This is from a pantry where they do have to do an order form. So they're packing the bag for folks in the back. They have a big warehouse, and they have somebody sitting with each person at the beginning to go through the order form. And they're in LA. They've got lots of different languages coming through. So on that order form, and so they can't guarantee that the person who's sitting with them speaks that language, right? It's just not realistic for their situation. So they have this is a booklet. They have this menu of common items, and it has the words translated into the common languages that they know they have, but then they also have pictures. And so regardless of the literacy level in the native language, or whether or not they have it translated in the language that that person has, there's this picture as a backup. So something like this can be really valuable. Pictures can be really helpful in general. So if you're making a sign, just think, how can I use fewer words? How can I use more pictures and still get the meaning across? For cultural accommodations, you can also think about using donors, or if you purchase food, to buy items that specific for those groups that you've been able to identify. So you may look for specific donors, maybe a restaurant nearby. You know, if you're doing food that is the food rescue, you know, then you may want to target specific donors for that. Okay, so some more translations. The poster to the left you can't quite see, but this is an Eat the Rainbow, and we have that in English and Spanish that you can order. The one in the middle, we already discussed this, is the cultural tip sheets. And if you look at those and you have a group that we don't have the tip sheet for, we would love to work with you to create one. You would get a focus group together. So please reach out to us. And then the picture to the right is just showing culturally important foods on prominent display within the pantry. So another thing you may consider is cultural celebrations. So this is an example of Dia de los Muertos celebration at one of our LA pantries. And this was during COVID, so it was a drive-through and masked distribution, but it can be nice to acknowledge and celebrate, right? Any way that we can bring joy and dignity into the experience, this is enjoyable for everyone. Okay. Oh, and so on eatfresh.org too, when you are thinking about translation and wanting to provide the recipes that we talked about during the nudges section, right? So eatfresh.org does translate recipes into, it uses just Google Translate. So pretty much any language that you need. It is a really, really great resource. Navigate to the recipe that you want. And then there's the translate button towards the top. It looks like a little globe. And then you can translate that and print that out. So highly recommend that as a way to find recipes in the language that you need.
Okay. So unfortunately, we don't have time to debrief every group, but we're going to be doing another set of breakouts. So maybe we can kind of hope to like hit some groups in this one and some groups in the second. You'll be in the same groups. So when we do this once more today, you'll have a little bit more time to just dive into the conversation. You won't have to spend so long doing, introductions and things like that. But do we have a couple of groups who would like to share a little bit about what they discussed? So I'll go over to the slides. And I landed it opened on group 6, but yeah, if anyone wants to unmute and just give a little overview of some of the highlights that were discussed, we'd love to hear from you.
I was in group 6, so that's our fabulous work there. But we talked about the fact that, most of my group is from very urban areas, and I'm from a very small town in rural northern Michigan. So it was interesting to hear the cultural differences and, trying to accommodate people who don't eat like we do. So that's why we said, the client surveys and maybe, looking into the cultures that live here, even up to having a public forum and talking to other people saying, hey, you live here, tell me what you eat and I'll tell you what I eat. And maybe we can offer those foods in our pantries.
I love that, Glory. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, turning it back to the community, because sometimes you make assumptions or you just don't really know until you say like, I think I know who's in my community, but I might only know who's in my own personal community and not my whole community, right? That's great. That's a great idea. Does another group, another breakout room want to share a little bit about what they discussed?
Group 5, I got a couple of really good ideas. Daryl mentioned in his pantry that they have a closet that they actually keep the items for unhoused people separate. So they would put the things like the pop top cans, water, things like that in that closet. So it would be available to them. And that just made so much sense to me because we don't do that. And then also someone said that they have a different entry. The people come in one entry and then exit another one, another door. I can just really see the benefit of that because then they're not observing everybody's cart or basket or what they got and complaining, well, they got more than I did because they didn't realize that's a family of 7, I think that would stop a lot of that. I don't like that idea. It's changing the environment in your pantry.
Thank you for sharing, Linda. Yeah, it's kind of tying back to what Carrie was saying about like having a system in place so that it's easy for anyone, for you, your volunteers, whoever it may be, other staff to know like, oh, this person is unhoused. I know exactly where to go to get soft foods, pop tops, ready to eat, water, hygiene products, maybe having a space where you can store that. It's a great practice. And yeah, the general flow of the pantry. I do think that's a nice practice as well, is to have sort of like enter here, maybe like a kind of general flow through the pantry, exit in another area, and can make it, feel like people, the process. Thank you for sharing. Can we have one more group? I think we have time for one more group to share back.
I can go. We're group 3. We talked about some environment of what people are doing for signage and warm and welcoming entries, and also the build a meal and the bundling type activities where ingredients are put together, recipe cards. We have some direct ed going on. We have some that have separate shelving for items that would be more maybe connect with more Hispanic and Hmong families that are separated out. And we agreed that new work or ways we like to expand are those more nudges with recipe and storage ideas, check-in friendly signage, and in multiple languages.
Thank you, Sandy. I love that. Olivia, the BAM reminds me of like Emeril Lagasse. Do you remember when that was his big thing for BAM? So that's a fun acronym for the build a meal. And I love how everything looks bundled there as well. Thanks for sharing all that, Sandy. Okay, so I want to respect that 2 hours is a long time, and you've been going nonstop. Let's still incorporate our break. Let's make it a little shorter. So let's do a 3-minute break. We'll come back at 10 past the hour for section 2. So let everyone go ahead and filter out so they can do whatever they need to do. We'll be back in a few. Okay, that was a short break, but if people can come cameras back on or at least flash on and off, that's always a helpful way to know that everyone's kind of back. I'll give it maybe another few seconds. There we go. Okay, so let's dive into our next 2 areas of focus within pantry settings. So the next one is going to be nutrition education. And our goal when we think about incorporating more nutrition ed into our sites is ultimately for our neighbors, our staff, and our volunteers to have access to nutrition and to culinary education that fits their unique needs. So right off the bat, and something I already saw a lot of you talking about in your small groups, a good place to start when incorporating nutrition ed into your site is adding something as simple as recipes and recipe cards. Now, pop-up or pre-bagged distributions, you can still include recipes, right? You stick them inside the bag, as you can see here on the image on the screen, or just have them at a location where when people are coming through or exiting your site, they have access to those. So I've seen people even have like the rolly kind of recipe carts that are outside, or along like even a drive-through, because usually there is still a check-in process happening. So it's like, where can you incorporate recipes? It works for all types of distributions, but of course, think about recipes that incorporate the food that you have on hand, that are culturally relevant, that are in a variety of languages. So there is some nuance to selecting even recipes, right? And if you're worried about printing, and I know some sites, it's not very convenient to print a bunch of pieces of paper. I completely understand that. I've worked with some sites where they have a big A-frame sign and they, have a QR code on that sign. And then by going through the QR code, that'll lead to a Facebook page or an Instagram or a website where recipes can be highlighted, on certain weeks or different months. And you can obviously link people to more information that way too. So thinking about kind of like, well, just how can I easily connect people if I'm not handing them something to that information? How can I incorporate that into my site? That is a great place to start. Another area we're going to dive into is talking about displaying nutrition education. So promoting nutrition education through food preparation tips, through signage, and through displays that you have in your space as well. And this is especially relevant and useful for those items that are a little bit less common or that people are a little bit less familiar with. We all know that we receive items that you're like, okay, I don't even really know what to do with this, so I don't know how to help direct my neighbors on a best practice of how to cook this. So incorporating and being really thoughtful about signage and recipes and displays when it comes to those items that are less common, unfamiliar, and also that you have a huge abundance of. So Carrie gave that, that carrot example. When I was at the food bank, I remember I had a site that was like, please don't send us another 50-pound bag of carrots. Please. It's like, I'm so sorry you aren't getting more carrots this week. Like it's, we had periods of abundance and periods of less choice. But I said, I'll be able to incorporate some recipes and some ideas for how to utilize those carrots in a different way. So it's another good opportunity for recipes. I'm going to show you eatfresh.org. So we've referenced it a couple times, but I want to make sure everyone's really comfortable with it, knows what it is. It is a great website sponsored by California's SNAP or CalFresh Healthy Living program. So on there, the recipes are generally going to be lower cost, healthy, variety of cuisines, a variety of cooking situations, low cook, no cook kitchens, all that stuff. So I'll show you that. And then additionally, don't forget about your volunteers and your staff. So it's not just about education opportunities for neighbors, but it's also about education opportunities for yourself, your volunteers, and your staff. I always like to give the example of, information related to expiration versus best by dates. Because that's something that I think a lot of volunteers might not feel as comfortable decoding for neighbors, but they're really important because it could feel really undignified to receive something that is, has a labeled date and that the date you're receiving it on has passed. But with a little bit of education about, no, actually that item is good for whether it's more days, weeks, even months, making sure that not just our neighbors are getting those opportunities for education, but our staff and our volunteers are as well, because they're really, the frontline workers communicating with neighbors day in and day out. And I do want to emphasize, like we do throughout all these different sections, the more you know your community and your neighbors, the better you can do everything we talk about. So you don't want to feel like recipes or handouts are going to waste. So remember getting that feedback, learning what people are interested in, learning what they want, even if it comes to what more information would you like, what types of recipes would you be interested in? All that will be really valuable for you. So let's start with these tasty tips. So we're going to start with small signage and then go to big signage. So the small signage you see, these are included in the resource library. We have a bunch of different options for printing them out. Like Carrie shared, you can label them laminate them and write on them with an expo marker really easily. They are a great way to nudge, but they're a great way to share nutritional information with neighbors as well. So you can see at these two pantries on the screen, one was an indoor client choice style pantry. One is just more of an outdoor pop-up distribution, but they're utilizing the tasty tips to share a little bit of information, right? So oatmeal keeps you feeling full longer, add fruits and nuts. The carrots, a great idea, grate me into mashed potatoes, right? Maybe something you wouldn't have thought of doing before, but I know a lot of parents, especially with kids, are always kind of looking for ways to incorporate, okay, maybe like what can I cook on hand, or how can I incorporate more fruits and veggies into foods that I know my family eats, knows, and likes. If you feel intimidated to come up with these tips to encourage people and to share information, you don't need to, because we are giving you a one-pager right here, and it has a bunch of general tasty tip best practices. So things like, for persimmons, okay, slice me into a salad for a sweet fiber-filled crunch. For eggplant, don't forget to sprinkle me with salt and let me sit for 20 minutes to reduce the bitter taste. Or leafy greens, add a handful on top of pasta, on rice, or on eggs. So really easy. And like I said, the signage itself is in a variety of, has different looks. Like some are the fruit and veggie looks, some are just plain rectangles and squares. So I really want to encourage you to play around with that and know that it's a great and easy way to share nutritional information with your community. Now, bigger signage that can be used throughout your space to not only improve that overall look and appearance, that physical environment, to make it feel more welcoming and colorful and abundant and beautiful, but it also is a really useful tool for sharing cooking and nutritional information. So we have this Eat the Rainbow poster available. Again, it's not like the best image of it. It's a really beautiful, colorful, big poster. And I think we have it in about 7 languages now. So it's a really great one too, if you have a very multicultural clientele and neighbor community, then you can have it posted, the same image in different languages throughout your pantry. And I like that at this site they're using kind of a poster stand, because that makes it very easy to change things out, be maneuverable. So I always really like with signage using that poster stand, because it gives you a lot of options and variety. Now, the second image is from some partners we worked with in New Hampshire. And I love this because this is a great example of an item that people might feel somewhat intimidated by. I know it took me a lot of years to feel comfortable cooking squash just off the bat, because it's so hard to cut, right? So you're already like, okay, this thing doesn't want to be eaten, right? Like it takes an axe to get into it. But through this signage here, it's showing, and again, through images. So it's speaking to so many different language speakers and literacy levels. It's still really easy to decipher what this is telling you just through images, which is take this butternut squash, remove the top, remove the bottom, peel the sides, take out those seeds. There are a lot of steps to the process. If you're not familiar with it, again, you feel intimidated, add some seasoning, cook it in the oven, and then this is a great thing that you have at the end. So I love this image, and I think it's a great example of a couple of the different topics we talked about already. And then finally, I think that a lot of us have felt like we run into a lot of neighbors who have the conception or the misconception oftentimes that frozen and canned food, that they're failing in some way by eating that or by offering that to their family, that it's not as good as fresh produce. So we worked with a partner in Sacramento who said, a lot of our neighbors feel this way, and we want to have signs that encourage them to consume that frozen and canned produce, to let them know that it is good, it can be helpful, it can even be just as helpful and nutritious as fresh produce. Again, depending on how you're cooking it, how it's, when everything was picked, there are a lot of factors there, but it's a great option. And it's not a failure. It's still an amazing thing to do, to utilize that canned and frozen veggies and fruits and veggies. So we have a few signs in that resource library, a couple posters and handouts that are all about the benefits of frozen and canned items. Now, something else we created that are really easy ways to incorporate that little nudges of nutrition education throughout your site, we call them our nutrition nuggets. So we wanted to make something that would help people easily identify, what is this item? What is a quick cooking tip about it? What's a little nutritional information factoid? And how's a best practice for storing it? Because if someone's taking something home and isn't storing it correctly and it's turning quickly, and we know we're often giving out food that is at end of life or peak ripeness a lot of times, it's not nutrition if it's not eaten, right? So it's really important to share that best practice for storage as well when you get home. So this again is in your resource library. It's editable, so you could change it up to be whatever kind of common fruits and veggies you get, but we have a lot of options already in there, preloaded in a template. And you can see this is a site in San Diego who, first off, they did such a great job of locating and sourcing like really beautiful baskets, and it looks really abundant. But they tried to include these nutrition nuggets just placed all throughout where the fresh produce was. So the dark leafy greens, the beets, they're actually small, but they were still big enough to read. I like the idea of using these little clotheslines to just clip them in different places. Again, make it as easy as possible for you and your volunteers to incorporate this stuff, to move it around, to have it work for you. So that is a great example of these in action. Now, let me quickly go over to eatfresh.org. So if you're looking for, okay, where can I find these recipes? Where can I find storage practices? Like, how do I gather that information? That takes time, right? Well, we have tried to make it simple for you because we have this website that is going to help. So again, Eat Fresh was created and is funded by CalFresh Healthy Living. So it is great for anyone, but especially for CalFresh or SNAP eligible individuals and families. So if you are on eatfresh.org, Carrie had earlier shared that you can change the language up top by using that little globe icon. So that'll help you print recipes in different languages. You can search for recipes based on common items. So if you're like, okay, we have canned beans and we have frozen corn. What am I going to tell people to cook with that? You don't have to go searching down an online rabbit hole. Type in those ingredients. A lot of recipes will pop up and then you can choose one that you like. We also, like I said, have our recipes grouped by different cooking environments. So if you do serve a lot of people who are in limited kitchens or who are unhoused, well, there's no cook, there's 20-minute or less, and there's limited kitchen as an option too. We have an Ask a Dietitian page if you want to say, like, you know, looking for more information that an RD would be able to provide. That's a good spot. And then the Discover Foods page is the other one I really want to highlight because this is where you can find a lot of best practices for cooking and also storing. So if you're not sure, you know, how to cook and store a certain item or best practice for that, the Discover Foods page is going to be a really good friend to you to help you figure that out. Now, additionally, a great resource we have available from Leah's Pantry through eatfresh.org is called our mini course. So the mini course is a nutrition course. It's completely free. It's delivered entirely online. You access it through eatfresh.org. So if you're on here, you could go to the bottom. There's a little link, Eat Fresh mini course, and you can sign up there. It's available in English and in Spanish. And through this online interactive course, then neighbors can have access to 15 nutrition and healthy living topics. It'll use eatfresh.org as its resource for some of the recipes and the information as well. And the topics that you're going to hear about are nutrition basics, creating wholesome meals, planning and shopping. So it's something that you can promote to your community. You can encourage your neighbors to, you know, take this course. Again, it's completely free. We have some flyers you can even use to promote it. Those are all in the resource library. But if you on site or on staff are like, I'd love to increase my own skill set around nutrition education, well, through the mini course, you can actually sign up for the educator's view, which unlocks 5 extra courses, which will help give you topics on like leading efficient, you know, classes, adult learning theory, facilitation best practices, using resources from eatfresh.org again to complement nutrition programming. So even if you don't have formal nutrition education experience, but it's an area that you or maybe another staff member or a volunteer is like, I'd really love to learn more, I'd love to incorporate more of this into our site, then they could take that educator version. And again, it's all completely free. This is, you know, open and accessible for anyone. So another great way to incorporate more nutrition education into your site is through incorporating demos and taste tests. So if you feel intimidated or just don't have the capacity to do this, oftentimes you can partner with a SNAP-Ed or a CalFresh Healthy Living community agency, a college campus, RDs who are in training, or, you know, you can train up a team member, again, increase your own capacity to offer something like a food demo or a taste test for your neighbors. So they don't have to be hard. They don't have to be intimidating or complicated. You can see in the middle, this is, you know, more so I'm partnering up with an outside implementer. So in this case, this pantry partnered up with the local food bank who had a nutrition department. And that department sent someone out onto the site to have a food demo and a little taste test and some nutrition education and some, you know, flyers and recipes and all that. So that's why partnership is so great, because it takes the load off of you to have to put that together and coordinate it and plan it, right? But it could be as simple as putting together a taste test of some spa water. So, having some fresh water for your neighbors on site, but incorporating some cucumber, some lemon, strawberries, um, having maybe a little bit information about the benefits of drinking water, whatever it may be. And then you can see up here on the right, now this site really gets the gold star because they're doing so much in this one image. So first off, they're bundling. Carrie showed you that. They're using our signage. We go together. They're showing you how to make the chili. And they have the recipe for it available in multiple languages. And then they actually had a staff member put together the recipe and have little samples for everyone to try. So this is kind of like a, 5 things in one image. So I think that's a great one as an example of what could be as well. Okay, so for nutrition education, what if you're looking again for some more on-site opportunities? What might those look like? You can provide on-site nutrition classes. You can use neighbor input for sourcing topics, for sourcing recipes. To find people to provide these classes, again, partnering with a local SNAP Ed or CalFresh Healthy Living, if you're in California, agency, start out by reaching out to your food bank, seeing if they have resources. Local colleges often can help, clinics, community sites. So in this image on the right, this was a local nursing school in Southern California who went to a pantry site to offer blood pressure checks and deliver a nutrition education class on site. This other image on the left is really cool because this is something happening virtually. So this is a partner I worked with in Walnut, California, and they're a community college, and they decided to offer a virtual nutrition education series where they had students sign up in advance to pick up a tailored meal kit. So they filled and pre-packed a bag with a meal kit. Then they had the students sign up for the class. Then everyone logged on at once, and they had a professor actually from the site leading the cooking demo of how to make that meal that everyone got the same copy of. Everyone's cooking together, but they're doing it in their own home. They're using ingredients that were sourced from the pantry. It obviously took some effort to put that together, but I thought it was a really unique and interesting way to incorporate that nutrition education class into a site. And then just some example images of, again, partnering with outside educators to actually use your site as a place to host, a series of nutrition classes. And finally, again, if you don't maybe have the space or the capacity for hosting a class or putting together a demo or a taste test, consider that social media can be a great tool for so many reasons, right? So once again, using your website, using a YouTube page, using an Instagram, a TikTok, whatever it may be, spreading information, sharing resources with neighbors. This partner we worked with in Southern California, they loved using their Instagram. They would just use Canva, which has like a free image creation resource. To put together these nice images, and they would weekly share out this bundled this series. So this idea of like, we're sending students home with a lot of things to cook with, and we're not sure that they're always super confident making things. And they really did try to think about, our students want stuff that's easy to put together, that keeps them full, that they can take to campus, etc. And then they made this little online virtual series of images that they scroll through the carousel and see like, this is what you're receiving. Here are the ingredients. Here's an easy recipe for it. Here's what it looks like in the end. So there's just some creative ways to utilize social media as well. Okay, so our very last focus area to discuss today before going into our breakout groups. And I see we have a couple comments. Yeah, Daryl had shared bitter melon and sweet potatoes. I think he was sharing that those are the things that are either uncommon or in abundance at their site. And Chrissy said butternut squash as spaghetti is a great hack as well. Yeah, I love doing that. So community connections, and here the idea is, we want you to think about, we want to share ideas, but again, of course, you're going to be going back into those breakout rooms and sharing things you're already doing in this concept of, connecting and collaborating within your community. So in practice, I'm going to talk about, discussing a couple different methods for connecting your neighbors to service providers and to each other and the community at large. And I'll focus on on-site connections to other service providers, and then this idea of, just offering a warm referral to a service provider or a program or another resource. So this image here is actually at an LA-based pantry where they connected with a local health clinic to get vaccines on site. They said, we have a lot of people coming through, even though it was just outside in the parking lot where they were able to block this off, that's a great community connection with the local health department to create and offer this vaccine clinic in tandem with the food distribution that was already happening. So whether you have already this really robust group of connected community partners, this is one of my favorite areas to hear back from, because I'm always hearing really like, oh, that's so unique. Oh, that's so interesting. Oh, that's a great partnership. So it's a really fun one to debrief in small groups. But whether you're already super connected or you're just thinking, I'd love to be more connected, I don't know where to start. Well, starting with something like an asset map or a resource guide is a really great starting point. Creating a system where just taking a beat to track who is it that we are connected to, or who is it that's already in our community that we would like to be connected to. So you could create something like a community asset map, using that strengths-based approach, thinking about what partnerships are out there, identifying information about different assets in your community, other service providers, resources that your neighbors would benefit from. Or maybe you say, like, we have, this asset map and we want to then identify who on it we want to do a better job of connecting to. Or let's think about a resource guide that we could then put together for our community. So you could have an external facing resource guide of, here are some other resources, other food resources, emergency assistance, educational programs, community-based organizations, or even do that internally, right? So internally have your list that you and your volunteers and staff can turn to. Oh, someone is asking about transportation. Here's someone I can help connect them to. Someone is asking about housing, about clothes, etc. So think about, that you could make this an external guide or an internal guide. But whatever it is, think about some specific partnerships that would really impact your community and their unique needs. For example, on this screen, you can see that at a Arizona-based food bank, they knew that a lot of their clients or their neighbors were interested in having a personal finance class. And so they're able to connect with a community provider to offer this personal finance class that actually happened at the library, but it was in partnership with the food bank as well that they were providing it. You can also see this is another California-based church who was able to connect to a clothing provider to get, and this is amazing, brand new clothes for kids for a back to school event. So you never know, right? Sometimes you just got to ask and see what's out there and start putting feelers out, letting people know what it is that you need. And I actually love that the image that they shared with us included someone saying, like, I took my niece and nephew, they loved it, and there was shaved ice there too, apparently, as well. So it seems like it was a really fun back to school event. And then finally, this bottom image is from a site who connected with a local community garden. This is really like a really makes sense kind of partnership that I see is pretty common as well. So either as a way to offer garden education, education opportunities for your neighbors, for yourself, to actually cultivate produce that's used on site, whatever it may be, these garden partnerships are really great natural fits for pantry sites as well. So, get specific about your on-site connections, or getting a little bit more specific about it. There's CalFresh or SNAP, there's WIC, there's congregate meal sites. Those are great ways to start connecting. Again, reach out to your local food bank for help, usually getting neighbors connected to CalFresh or SNAP benefits. But I see a lot of popularity and a lot of momentum around connecting with transportation services, healthcare, laundry and shower, job recruitment, clothing, resource fairs, right? Maybe you say, we don't have the capacity to do this at every distribution, but we once a year want to have multiple providers come out. Then host a resource fair. That's a great way to do it. And then finally, an important piece of community connection is offering a chance for your community to connect with each other. And I saw in the previous breakout, someone has shared this as a goal of theirs as, creating a place where people can eat meals together, which I think is a beautiful thing. And I've worked with pantries that have been able to offer that. This is an image of a trunk or treat. So at that food distribution site, they actually hosted a trunk or treat for the community, right? So it's a chance for people to just come and connect and have fun and feel like they're being uplifted part of a community. Volunteer recruitment. So reaching out to that community to boost your volunteer recruitment, that's a great way to do it as well. Partner with local churches, student associations, community groups. There are lots of online portals for this as well. Volunteer Match, Facebook. What's that neighborhood-based one? I always forget the name of it, but that's another great one as well. I'm sure it'll come to me. And then just a couple more slides, and then we'll go into our last breakout. So inventory. This is another great area to think about. Could I utilize and could I bolster my inventory through making more partnerships, through better connecting within my community? This might mean, finding a retail rescue partnership, finding a local gleaning organization to get more fresh produce. But it could also mean, well, like I actually have great partnerships for food right now, but I know my community needs diapers or formula or pet food or specialty products. So if you can identify what are some areas where I could really boost my inventory, maybe outside of traditional, produce and food, then it's pretty common to be able to find partnerships by reaching out to the Humane Society for dog food, reaching out to, your food bank. Do you guys ever receive any hygiene products or socks or clothes or whatever? This was a diaper and, a baby drive at the bottom that was then given out to the participants of this particular pantry. And finally, don't feel bad if you can't do all these great things and partner in this way. Also putting together a resource board and offering that warm referral to the service provider, that in and of itself is very helpful. You can have a resource table set up. You can make sure your volunteers are super aware of the different resources that you're trying to connect your neighbors to, what they are, and just offer that referral to those other providers, to a housing or a job center, to someone doing sign up for CalFresh. So you can see here some different images on site at food pantries of resource boards. I love how this one, they're just using a whiteboard and they're able to say, hey, like red flag, there's a job opportunity here. Oh, there's garden plots available. See the offices if interested. So I do like how there's that real versatility with the whiteboard, but the rest are really nice, easy to read, clean resource table and boards. Welcome back. Once again.
Yes.
Okay, let's dive into it. So, do we have anyone who wants to share some things that were discussed in their group? Be nice to hear from a group who didn't get to go during the first breakout as well.
Okay, I'll go.
Which group were you, Sylvia?
I'm with group 4.
Great.
And yes, we were just talking about how we're collaborating with other agencies within our community to just to partner to do like resource fairs and different activities where we can involve not just the neighbors, but the other agencies. One of the examples I gave is every year we do a harvest helping event where we're distributing turkeys throughout the city of Jacksonville, along with other harvest helping foods that center around Thanksgiving, and how we have a huge distribution in several locations throughout the city where other agencies can also come to resource what they do. So we talked a lot about partnering and collaborating with community agencies.
Oh, awesome. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing, Sylvia. Sounds like you have some really robust connections already in your own community. That's
Yeah.
great. Anyone else want to share a little bit?
I can share some points from week 2,
Okay.
if they don't mind me sharing. Some of them I thought were maybe a little bit different. So someone mentioned that they have a community garden where the kids, of course, someone wants to correct me, but the kids come and harvest. So the fruit and vegetables harvests go toward the local food pantry, which I think is awesome. And then we also talked a lot about food rescuing, which I know might be a little bit different than the food pantry, but we know some foods go to waste, maybe at a school or another community site. And food pantries, if they want to rescue those foods from other places, can bring them to their pantry. Or partnering with your local convenience stores before they ditch them, to give them to you. Sometimes going local, shopping local, partnering local is more successful than partnering with someone big.
Absolutely. Daryl, we will be ending at 12. We'll be ending in 5 minutes. So we'll be closing up soon. Yeah, I forgot to add this when I shared about community connections, but a great thing to do is also find a buddy pantry, because then you can connect with them to share overages. Or if you have we have a little bit of a shortage right now, maybe that pantry has an overage. So that's a great community connection as well. Okay, perfect. Maybe one more group, and then I think we'll still have time to close things up. And one more group want to share?
Group 1 can go. So we were nutrition education, and some of the current work that our group members are doing is school gardening. And that kind of looks like kiddos being educated on gardening and then being able to take home their own garden kits and seedlings. At the organization that I work at, I go to our community garden and I do food demonstrations and educate as well on some of that produce that's local and different ways to utilize it. We discussed social media nutrition education that we're currently doing, working with schools and taking on dietetic interns. So I precept dietetic interns and they can help me push out more nutrition information and education. One of our group members, her organization works with the American Heart Association. And then we did kind of mention working with community partners. We feel like our organizations are doing pretty good with that at this time, even though ours was nutrition education. But ways that we can improve are providing more resources, providing and educating on nutrition nudges with sites and/or pantries that we work with, and then incorporating SWAP guidelines.
Thank you, Sarah. Awesome. Some great conversations today. And we'll share a copy of these breakouts if anyone wants to continue kind of nosing around and looking at what different people discuss. There's just some great ideas being generated. So with that, we are almost at the end of day 2. So reminder, we're going to link you to this personalized resource library. It has great resources. Please don't hesitate to use it. There's the notes for what to do with this resource library at the top, but you can make a copy of anything so you can kind of edit it for your own needs as well. It'll be in that online course under optional resources too. And then Leah's Pantry does have a podcast. So Stocking the Pantry, it is a really cool podcast for nutrition security professionals if you're looking to explore more concepts around trauma-informed nutrition, community nutrition, food security programs. Colby from day 1 is one of the facilitators or the hosts, I guess is what you call on a podcast. So please do check it out. We at least release a couple of new episodes every month, and it's on YouTube and Spotify. So follow Stocking the Pantry for more there. And then that is it. So thank you all so much. Reach out to us directly at npp@leaspantry.org. We have an evaluation for this training. Your feedback is vital and it is much appreciated. So Kaylee is going to share that link for the evaluation. Notice that the first question is about which training you're a part of. So you're part of the fall, September 2024 Building Nourishing Pantries training. And then with that, I'll leave this open in case anyone wants to follow the QR code. And we just once again want to thank you so much for joining us. I know everyone's super busy, but I hope you learned and enjoyed sharing and getting to know some new people as well. So thank you. We'll stay on for a couple minutes, but you're all free to go. All right, bye.